So I think pretty soon we're going to start, but at this point, Christina is going to tell us about the topics we'll be looking at, and also about how the questions thing works.
Yeah, exactly. So basically the whole session is going to be divided in 7 sections. The first one is going to be why the Deepak favors LinkedIn over Google. Like, he's going to elaborate on this, why it's more important for him. The next thing is, well, how you actually start on LinkedIn, how you set the things up. Let's say you're a newbie, you don't know what to do, so he's going to talk more about this. The third part is going to be about the key components of LinkedIn. So like what you do, how you start this. Next thing is going to be about adding connections. So how do you connect with people? When is the best time to connect with people? All of those details. So lots of practical tips, right? Next one is about engaging with people. So say you've already established some connections, but how do you approach people then?
So this is where you actually make the money part.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's the money part. That's where it comes in. That's very important. So make sure you stay tuned. Next one is going to be about your social updates, like not the system updates of LinkedIn, but your personal updates, so updating your statuses and like sharing content and stuff like that. And the last section, the 7th section, is going to be on content. What do you actually publish there? How do you do it? And so on. And last but not least, after all of this, after we go through all of these 7 sections, we will go to the most exciting part, I think, which is going to be a live audit. So basically, Deepak is going to pick some real accounts and going to audit them in real life time. So basically, he's going to go through them, say what's done wrong, what's done right, and maybe give some recommendations and advice. So I'm really excited about this because I think we can all use it for our personal accounts in the end. Yeah. So, and now about the question thing. You can leave your comments in different platforms that we're streaming now. So we have different broadcasts at the time. We have, for example, a broadcast on YouTube Live, also on Facebook. So you can leave your comments there. Also, you can use our hashtag SEMrushLive and just tweet on Twitter, and we'll be monitoring all of this, all your questions throughout the session, and we will ask some of them throughout the session. And also in the end, feel free to add your account, your LinkedIn account, and we'll pick some randomly to get audited by Deepak.
So guys, again, throw your questions, and the ones that are pertinent to the sections that we're talking about, we'll ask them on the air. Again, of course, we can't answer them all, but we'll pick a few good ones. And yeah, throw your accounts into the questions as well, or into one of our chats or whatever, and then we'll choose them for the audit.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so with that being said, I want to introduce again Mr. Deepak Shukla of Per Traffic. Cool guy, high energy, very positive. I think he's going to make for a really good conversation. So, Deepak, why don't you tell us about yourself, about your, I guess, background, and then just dive right into the first section.
Absolutely. Thank you, both of you guys, Christina and Sergei, for the wonderful introduction. First place to begin. Is that echo you're picking up from my side, by the way?
Nah, no echo, mate.
Okay, all right, perfect. So yeah, fantastic. So Per Traffic, we set up November 2016. So we'll be going into our 5th month now. My background came from, I spent a lot of time, being honest, traveling the world, doing different things for the last 6 years. And during that time, I supported myself through different forms of internet marketing. As I was saying off air, I kind of hit 30 last year, and I was like, okay, time to come back to the UK, grow some roots, and do something that would build more of a stable future, shall we say. So I set up a digital marketing agency, and at that time, being frank, and it's probably the same for many business owners, I was like, the reality is you know, there's 3 of us involved at the moment. Really, I'm the co-founder, and we don't have perhaps the same budgets as an established digital marketing agency that's been around, you know, for 4 years, or has just more time and resources. So I was like, how can I still get in touch with people that, you know, are really going to not only keep our lights on, but, you know, ultimately grow our business? And that was kind of the question that I asked myself, that led, I guess, to me talking to you today. So that is me. I hope that suffices.
Perfect. Okay. So with that awesome introduction.
Yeah.
So first, Deepak, tell us about why you favor LinkedIn over Google, because that's quite a bold statement, right? I mean, we all love Google, but in some cases, it actually makes sense to love LinkedIn more, right? So tell us.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So first of all, let me preface this by saying, obviously, Google is a premium place. It works. It's effective. The reality is that Google's, if we think about it in terms of marketplaces, ultimately, LinkedIn is a smaller marketplace than Google, right? LinkedIn, in terms of the kinds of people that are on LinkedIn, is more focused than Google. You won't, well, it might be changing now, but you won't get people posting cat memes or GIFs on LinkedIn, and it will be business owners as well as recruiters and employees on Google. So it's targeted. Furthermore, for me to rank therefore on LinkedIn versus Google will be simply a lot easier, because it's a smaller marketplace, it's the right kinds of people, and I'm ultimately going to spend a lot less. So for those reasons, I took to LinkedIn initially, because as we're beginning to obviously build the per traffic brand, and we're trying to do things that relate to the typical things that a content marketer will tell you about, long form content, backlinks, as well as, you know, webinars and all those other things, it was like, well, I kind of need money today. I want our business to grow today, and I might not reach page 1 of Google for, if I'm doing an excellent job, you know, 6 months for a very competitive keyword. If I'm, yeah, exactly. He's like, no, you won't. But that's why, in a not so short nutshell, I favor LinkedIn over Google. I think it's easier to get seen and heard on Google today than it is LinkedIn. Other way around, LinkedIn and Google.
Yeah, makes sense. And obviously, your approach as well is kind of like the free model, right? Because you're not spending money on a premium subscription to LinkedIn, right? So I mean, you're doing this completely with free approach.
Here's the really interesting part, because of course, a skeptic would say, okay, Deepak, do you invest any paid spend into Google, into LinkedIn, or do you use like the sales navigator approach, or, you know, LinkedIn lead generation? I have a free account on LinkedIn. I don't pay for those tools on LinkedIn. So yes, you're quite right. I take the freemium approach, and I've always had the case that exhaust all organic means before then you move into a paid model. And I find that we don't always do enough in terms of exhausting that. So you're right, Sergey. I don't. If anyone goes over to my LinkedIn profile now, they'll notice that I don't have the little gold IN, if you like. So people, you know, I have clients that approach me saying, I've got the LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I'm thinking, you know, I've actually never used that. So I wonder how it, like, for my own account. So yeah, you're quite right. I don't use the paid version of LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really curious, actually. All right. Well, so how do you start? How do you set the things up? Let's say I'm a beginner. I don't know anything about LinkedIn. Like, I've heard that it's a cool network and I can find some professionals on there. But what do I do? Can you give us some tips on this?
And also, I'm a beginner, but I know that I want to use it to generate leads.
To make
it's
money. Not just like to have a profile there, do nothing with it.
So I'm not trying to make a LinkedIn your profile so I can show my mom, like, hey mom, check out this thing. Yeah, it's for business. So get us started on the right track.
Absolutely. Okay, so I guess the best analogy to use in this world of Tinder that we live in, you would never put together an awful profile on Tinder and then expect to connect or match with the hottest guy or the hottest girl. Yeah, I see this happening every day on LinkedIn, because I have people that have read, for example, the blog post that I put out on Semrush about how to, you know, build a LinkedIn profile. And then some people will say, oh, Deepak, it's not quite working for me. So to be practical, you have to look and dress the part, so to speak, before you can then act the part. What that means is, when we think about, for example, profile pictures, I'm going to, is it okay to share my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Because I appreciate that this is a little bit abstract for some people. They're like, well, what does that actually mean? So can you see my screen right now?
Right now,
now, yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. I was actually logged into a client account now, ironically. I'm going to log in to my account, and I'm just going to do a couple of random searches, and I'll just show you exactly what I'm talking about just in a second in terms of profile setup. So okay, let's go to, this is Sean Phillips. So Sean Phillips is a managing director here in the UK. Now, he's got a picture of him. I don't know if you can see that. This is his profile picture.
Yeah.
So unless he's not smiling, He's got a phone. I don't know whether he's a cold caller, but he's certainly not put that in his profile. He says he's a managing director. But this is, when you think about it from the ground up, you see that profile and I don't really know what to make of it. Furthermore, the second thing, for example, in terms of profile setup, is he's a managing director, but like any managing director, he wants to grow his business. However, I don't really know what he's the managing director of, what his business does, what his service does. You know, it's like going onto a site that sells cars like BMW, but all it would say is we do cars. That practical in terms of, you know, what you can do with that. So when you think about this in your own profile picture, then we've got, of course, the profile headline and summary, the summary here. Managing director, okay, managing director of what? Where is the social proof? And then as we continue going down, looking for, so it doesn't, if we look at his profile, I'm trying to work out what he does. And the fact that I need to try and work out what he does probably means that if I'm short on time and I'm just looking for value, I'm going to switch off. So the irony is, and let me come back to you guys now and see me now?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So the irony is it's not that different from Google in a way in terms of UX and conversions that people talk about the power of copy. You know, what is it that you actually do as a business? The same principles apply practically to LinkedIn. And that was a random example, as everyone just saw, that I went onto. And I couldn't establish what he did as a business immediately. I didn't really understand why he had the picture of the phone. So here's, if there's any obviously listeners that are thinking about, okay, well, how can I apply this to my LinkedIn profile? Think about your picture, think about your profile headline. When you have, for example, managing director, or maybe you'll say, well, it doesn't apply to what I do. The second element of it is, if you're a seller of services, so let's say you have a service and you're on LinkedIn, then that means that you need to look and dress the part even more than the buyer. So if we think about it in the world of Tinder as being the reference again, if I'm the guy trying to approach a girl, it's the onus is on the guy who has to look and dress the part rather than the girl, because the guy is chasing the girl. And the same principles apply in the marketing world, that okay, if I'm the person that's chasing you, I have to make it clear to you that you can derive some value from me.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes in with, how will I get in touch with you with a follow-up? So the third thing to kind of round that part off is, if anyone goes onto my profile, let's go into let me share my screen again. The final thing, which has been the biggest thing that Sergey and I talked about once. Hang on, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so let's go to my profile. And this is just the desktop experience, right? But let's say you've seen this part. I'm a digital marketing. You know, I could put managing director here, but digital marketing is what I do. But here is the part that I actually wanted to make reference to, which is the phone number. Can you guys see that clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I've just zoomed in again. Perfect. Okay, amazing. So I've just given everybody my phone number, which is fantastic. So I know that if someone wants to communicate with me, they are probably just a little bit more averse to ringing my landline, because they assume that they're probably going to speak to either they're not going to speak to me. They're going to get through to an office line. So in terms of the conversions that I've had, when people quickly look on my profile, some people don't even really get this far. They'll just look at, okay, what do you do? Okay, you do marketing. Okay, what are your skills? Okay, here's your skills. PPC ads, inbound lead generation. Okay, but are you good at what you do? Or are you just saying the same as what everybody else says? Okay, you've got 250,000 views on YouTube. Okay, cool. How can I contact you? And you know what? From all the people that have actually converted with me, they've probably not really even read. Let me come back to you now. They've probably not even. Sorry, guys, give me a second. Here we go. I'm not even sure that they've read any of my articles. They've got as far as my profile, seen those things, and thought, right, I'm just going to ring him immediately and say, this is what I need.
Yeah.
So that's been instrumental for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, for somebody who's actually setting up, right? And so, what are some like blatant mistakes that you've seen people do when they're starting from scratch? Like, can you say a few things that we clearly should avoid doing when starting with our LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So the irony is, okay, when you're on LinkedIn, one mistake that I made that really didn't work out well, I got some really bad comments back sometimes when I was like literally kind of let's call it punching above my weight within the world of LinkedIn. So what I mean practically by that is if I have 150 connections, no recommendations and no likes, and then I try and approach the CEO of JP Morgan, it's not going to really probably end well for me, because the guy at JP Morgan who is getting the connection request from Deepak Shukla isn't going to search outside of LinkedIn. He's going to use LinkedIn as his reference point, because that's how I've approached him. You know, it's like playing basketball with a guy on the basketball court and then him trying to think, I wonder how he plays tennis. He's not going to care about tennis. He's going to care about basketball. So you have the opportunity on the court, which is LinkedIn. But if you look like, you know, you've got odd matching socks and you don't really know anybody and you're on the back bench, and then you're like, hey, dude, who's, you know, like the lead player, he's going to laugh at you. And the same principle applies on LinkedIn. So I once, when I had like 127 connections, was like, right, I would really like to get the managing director of Semrush as one of my clients. So I'm just going to send him a connection request. And I'm just going to expect that on the basis of following Deepak's advice for a week, that's going to work. No, it won't. And I've made those mistakes. And I've, you know, had problems with LinkedIn because that person has clearly said, this is spam. And they've kind of marked it. So that process, because that's probably what everyone's interested in terms of, Deepak, I want to learn from you how I can actually make money. And you know, there isn't a magic bullet with LinkedIn. You can't just go out immediately and start making those connections. However, if you've been on the call a little while and you kind of look like the part, and actually what you want to sell him is tennis, but you know, you're not on the tennis court, you're on the basketball court, and you look like you're the part, i.e. you have 500 plus connections, you've got 7 recommendations from people that are either within your network, or you've got your Auntie Sally to leave you a recommendation about some work you did for her once. All of these things actually help, because it's just that first impression. We talked about Tinder, about when you approach a girl, or the principle is the same. People make very quick, obviously, and we see it everywhere. Short form videos are getting shorter. Content, like people want shorter. One of the things we discussed off there is that let's not make this an hour, because people don't have the attention spans. The same principles apply within LinkedIn and absolutely everything. So the biggest mistake I think I see that happen is that there's never a second chance to make a first impression, right? And there is, of course, but it's so much harder. So wait. I always practice a bit of patience. Connect with people that you may know, that you actually know. Work on building up the recommendations. Getting 20 recommendations on your profile won't happen in a week. It'll probably take a month. But if you've already exhausted every person that you want to potentially approach by then, it's probably not going to work the second time around. So there's some of the things that I see that people do that don't always work.
Okay, well, good advice.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I really like how you mentioned Tinder so much. That's that's a good comparison. But yeah,
I'll be on a separate an hour. Generally,
I'm in a relationship, by the way, so it's not people wondering, okay, Deepak, what do you do? Yeah. But I find that Tinder is a very universal reference that kind of.
Yeah, everyone understands it, definitely. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the key components of your LinkedIn profile. So we already mentioned the headline, so it's better to write what exactly you're just managing director of who knows what. What else can you say? Can you add to this about such things as your latest work experience, how it's better to summarize it, and social proof?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess now our core is set up. Now we're trying to add
add some content and to your profile. Yeah.
Okay, great. I will share my screen so people can see what it is that I mean. Is that good for you guys?
Yeah.
Sweet. Give me.
Theory is good, but examples are even better.
That's what we need.
Absolutely. So, right. Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay. Amazing. Okay. Let me just run an example. So, of course, this is my profile. I've pressed expand. I will run through it in a minute, but you can see, of course, lots of text here. But what I want to show, or what I want to explain something. Look at how I put this together structurally. Structurally, can you see that I've used these little dashes? Those dashes actually are really useful from a visual perspective, because it begins to break up the text, and you can understand, you know, different dashes relate to different sections. Often what I see on a summary is, I'm going to just take a random one again as well and have a look. Let's have a look at this summary. Okay, so this summary is obviously quite short. career human resources generalist with wide international and large team management experience. Practically, he's not telling us what he can deliver or what he can do for you. So when you think about, okay, what does that mean for me? It doesn't really help me much. If he said, for example, instead of career human resources generalist, he could say, I help put high performing individuals into organizations in the UAE. More specific. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So that's one example of something in terms of how you write. You need to think about it in terms of the audience. Like, you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for the person that's reading your profile. That's an initial thing. Now let's talk about, as you said, you mentioned, you know, the actual profile. So here's my profile. Okay, cool. So a couple of quick things. You have media, add rich media. Like, use it. When you add rich media, though, the common thing that I see people do is that they just leave. I can go into this and I can actually edit what it says here. So speaking at TEDx on personal branding, as you saw, get my Twitter beginner's guide today, how to become a TEDx speaker. So there's an opportunity with all of these to turn it into a call to action. What you'll often see is like company pitch or project, or it will say, it won't say something that incites you to click upon it. So people already know that they should add rich media. I think that a lot of people will know that, but what they often don't do is change the actual copy that's here. Because if it just says company portfolio or case study, that doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't really tell me the value that I'm going to derive from it. So that's another thing that's quite important practically. And that applies to all of the rich media that you do use. But in terms of the rich media that's important, the summary is super important, that you're either working for or manage or run right now is important. And as you can see, I've also added some how-tos, how to become a contributor to Forbes and more, advanced local SEO for forward-thinking businesses. So this also underlines what my business value is in terms of the actual media here. That's another thing. The final thing to say on this point, Sergey and Christina, and of course the audience, is I told you for the kind of people that were eagle-eyed, let me bring myself back now. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the spot. But I told you for the people that are eagle-eared even, that I was freelancing for a while and I was trying to run various startups. But if you look on my LinkedIn profile, it doesn't say that I was founder at any of the businesses that were previous to what I do now. What it says is video marketing director or inbound marketing director. The reality is what I was doing, the inbound marketing, was one component of everything else that I did. So practically what I mean is when you're creating all your job titles, if you're right now working in HR, but you used to work for a wholesalers, or you used to do something completely different. Let's say you're in HR now, but before that, you used to do cold calling. Cold calling in HR are different industries. However, as part of cold calling, if one element of it was employee training, you taught another person how to cold call, I'd probably put as a title in-house employee training, because that relates a lot more to HR.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not lying, you're telling the truth, you are making it relevant to what you do today, and you are giving for the first time purchaser, because someone who's going to actually maybe invest time in contacting you, let's be honest, they're not going to look at every work experience that you've done. They're not going to look at all the details, because no one's going to do that. What they will quickly do when they flick their mouse or their trackpad is they're going to look at the job titles. I would rather work with the HR lady who's got a background of related work experience, rather than the HR lady who has worked in cold calling and then worked as a personal assistant, because it's not as related. Now, practically, those two might have the actual same work experience, but one person has chose to highlight very specific elements of what they do. So that was how I've been able to kind of forge myself as an expert digital marketer, because I picked out the specific things that I've done for all of the companies I've ever worked for or run that relate to what I do today. Right. So everything that your history has to support today, you know. So basically,
you got to be relevant.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be relevant, and even if you think that there's not any relevance, you can always find relevance. You're just not thinking about it
right
laterally enough.
Okay, so actually, question on the social proofs and stuff. So obviously, you know, we can add certificates and all this stuff that maybe we have, maybe we're good at it, maybe we're not, maybe we just have a certificate. I mean, obviously there's like the Google Analytics and all this other stuff. So should we actually put all that stuff to our profile, or should we pick and choose what to add? And how would you approach that?
Absolutely. So the common sense thing that everyone should do, of course, is fill out your profile, right? So fill out everything. However, okay, good example. So there's a section on LinkedIn that says courses, right? You can add courses, and the courses that I realized I put on there were my university courses. So that was, I studied literature as a major at college. So I do stuff like Shakespeare, Dostoevsky, or whatever it might be. Dostoevsky. But that actually isn't relevant to what I do today. And it isn't really an impressive thing either. So the rule for me is, it's definitely fill out your profile, but if it isn't impressive, so for example, the fact that, you know, I'm, let me think, I lived homelessly for a week once, right, as a social experiment. That is not related to anything that I've done, of course, but it's impressive and it's interesting. So of course I'm going to put that in my profile, because someone might want to, the CEO of a company might want to talk to me about that because it's interesting. However, the fact that I studied Shakespeare at university is not interesting because it's not unique enough. So I would say that, of course, fill out your profile, but if you're going to tell me that, you know, you've got a PhD in robotics and you released this really interesting paper, but you're applying for a cold calling job, I would really question whether that's something that your audience is going to find interesting. However, if you're a professional paraglider, then of course that's just interesting. So I think that there's that is how I'd approach it. Fill it all in, but if you think that it's not really interesting or relevant to what you do, skip it.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
So next section.
Okay, well, actually, the next one, I think we can combine the next two because the first one is on adding connection, and the second one is engaging with people you have on LinkedIn. So basically, you can go quickly through adding people, how you would do this, because you already mentioned this, right? Yeah. And then we'd like you to concentrate more on engaging with people. How would you do this? What if you have some tips, like practical tips? We're ready to do them.
And some examples. Because I know you have some examples that you showed me previously offline. So definitely looking forward to this.
Okay, all right, amazing. So I'll briefly touch on adding connections. If you have let's just say if you have less than 500 connections, 500 I see is the magic number. I know that everyone adds people that they don't actually know. Everyone adds someone that's in their second degree network, but I don't really, you cross that line very quickly. A lot of people do that. I would say don't do that until you kind of look, dress, and walk the part, i.e. profiles filled in. You've got a level of, you've exhausted your level of personal connections. Now you're trying to connect with people that you don't know. That's the first thing. Once you go past 500, then you can do that a little bit more because you don't have, your account's not that green. You've built up some credibility with LinkedIn, and they'll allow you to be a little bit more wild. Don't be too wild, because I've had kind of ad blocks. I know people that have been ad blocked, or they've done different things and been too aggressive. So if you're too aggressive, just like the lady or the man will run away. It's the same thing with LinkedIn with adding connections. Now, Sergey, as you asked, I'm going to go over to my LinkedIn and I'm going to talk about engagement, and I'm going to talk to you again about, my experience is born of all the things I've done wrong, basically.
And for everybody out there listening, so this is the actual lead gen part. So now your profile is set up. You listen to Deepak's advice on what to add, what to not add. You have everything that it needs. You have connections now. You're not very green anymore. So now you're ready to actually do the engaging part.
Now we're getting down to business.
That's right. So Deepak, let us know what should we.
So amazing. Thank you for that. That was a wonderful introduction. So guys, girls, everybody, I'm in my notification section, right? Now, LinkedIn tells you when someone's had a work anniversary. So I could, if I choose, Pinky and 6 others for their work experience. Don't do that. Like, really weird when I get a congratulations message for having been at X company. For if I could congratulate Kane Fleming, for example, for 3 years at Monocle. Into Kane before. 2, no one congratulates you on a work anniversary. 3, it's just odd to get a message from somebody you don't know in this fashion. So I would say stay away from the work anniversary congratulations. The next thing that you'll often sometimes get that I would say use with caution. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, I can't find it just this second. Oh no, it's because I'm in work anniversaries. Hang on. Let's see if someone's got a birthday today. The other thing that LinkedIn asks you to do sometimes is to celebrate a birthday. So, hey, it's this person's birthday today. Oh, here we go. The happy birthday. Now, Steve, I actually work with Steve. We work together. So that's okay. I did send him a happy birthday message. But again, it's really weird to get a happy birthday message from someone that you don't know. It's perhaps a bit more appropriate because people do remember their birthdays, of course, and it's significant. Of course, is a professional environment. So getting a happy birthday from someone you don't know is a bit odd. So let me talk to you now about the two things that I do when I get some, for example, like people are on this webinar and look, they sent me a connection request, right? So I've got a connection request from this chap, Mohit Maheshwari, who's a partner at New Media Guru. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. He says, look, was watching your SEMrush webinar. Good job. Thank you, Mohit, if you're still listening. Maybe he's logged off now, I don't know. But I'm going to accept his connection request, okay? Now, the typical thing that people do once they accept the connection request is they probably do nothing, right? So I'm going to show you what I do. So I'm going to go over to see all connections, and I'm going to click on message. And now there's different things that do this. There's Textexpander, there's text, but anything that allows you to expand text is obviously very practical and useful. My word that I use is LAD, L-A, lowercase, and then -D. And look, I have this message that appears. Hey, and then I'm just going to write Mohit, comma, and I'm going to leave the rest. Thanks for the ad. It's always keen to connect on LinkedIn, but I want to do more than that. And then I have 5 things that I run him through saying, you can have this for free. You can have that for free. This is what I'm working on at the moment. If none of that is interesting to you, then I enjoy talking about marathons, tattoos, cats, Hollywood, marketing, and of course, entrepreneurship. Thanks, Deepak. And then I click send. Now, that is something that I do with anyone that connects with me. Let me come back to you guys now because I know that I've been sharing my screen for ages.
So actually on that topic with the connecting, so what happened if you connected with people, but you didn't do that? So can you go back and kind of still send the messages afterwards? What do you think?
I think so. I mean, ultimately, as long as you provide value that isn't, I've got this really interesting article that, you know, I think you should read about the 5 really useful things in virtual reality. And you're talking to someone who runs like an estate agent. It's like, well, what? Why would you send me that? Or yes, the short answer is yes, but people have a habit of sending something that's still too overtly salesy. So that is, you know, people see through sales. But if you're going to sell, be honest. Say, you know what, I would love for you to buy from me. This is an article that I've got that might convince you of that. But if you're not interested in that, then this is just something that's helped me with my day-to-day business or use of LinkedIn. People respond to honesty. I mean, it really is effective. So I'd say on that point, Sergei, if you don't really have a reason to connect with them, find a reason that's useful in the whole business world. So, you know, everybody might like Hunter, for example, as a Chrome plugin that allows you to search people's emails within LinkedIn, or they might like something else, you know, that might be useful, like a tax calculator if you're a financial services advisor. So I'd say that they'd be 2 really good examples of how you can still lead with value where you don't have anything in common. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does. Okay, what about using hashtags and different type of tags on LinkedIn? What would you say about this?
I'll be honest. I actually mentioned that. I wrote that in as a little word in my webinar and in my presentation, and I wonder why I did. I use hashtags in my. I think I've used a couple in my posts, as in the LinkedIn posts that I write. But honestly, I don't actually use them on the searches. My understanding from what I've seen is that it's had no practical effect in terms of me winning any business. So the honest truth, Christina, is no comment. I've not used it enough to know, and it's not something that is part of my marketing matrix, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, quick question from one of the audience people. The Textexpander thing. What was the program that you used for that?
Sure. So there's Textexpander, I think, that's for the Mac. It's called Textexpander, and that's the expensive version, if you will. That's like $25, $30. There's a cheap version that does all the same stuff, and it's called text. Literally the word A and then TEXT. $5 on the App Store. I'm going to show you something, guys, quickly. Actually, this saves me so much time because everyone's always like, well, Deepak, that takes me forever. This is a text, okay? Have a look. I'm just going to quickly expand the screen. So have a look at this. I've got Deepak Shukla, and these are all my text expansion options for Deepak Shukla. Then I've got LinkedIn. I've got a whole section on LinkedIn. Then I've got per traffic, right? Then I've got marketing one-liners. Then I've got freelancing sites. So let me just give you an example of what actually happens, right? Someone says, Deepak, what's your LinkedIn? There you go. Deepak, what's your Facebook? There you go. Deepak, Twitter. What is that text that you wrote on LinkedIn? Boom.
Nice. Yeah, excellent. That's good because a few people actually asked about this. So thanks for showing that.
That's extremely
no problem.
Wow, thank you.
It's all good. Let me come back. But yeah, no, it's a great question. I use Textexpander, and everybody could use Textexpander. Sorry, yeah, here we go. It saves me a ton of time, and that's how I'm able to send personal messages, but en masse.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual lead gen part. So you showed me this before. So we're actually reaching out to people now and trying to get their attention so they can get in touch with you for you to sell some service or whatever else, to offer something. So show us some examples of that and how do you actually do it. So I think we're ready for some examples.
All right, amazing. So let me share my screen again, and let me go into my LinkedIn here. So I'm back here with, okay, two things. First of all, and this is something I didn't actually share with you before, Sergey. So this is going to be kind of cool. You guys might see that I have 114 articles, right? So in the world of content marketing, long form of course does win. You know, for you guys, I think I wrote an article that was a couple of thousand words. It needed it. I don't do that on LinkedIn. You probably can. It probably works. I write, and look, I don't even get that many clicks on my articles, right? And let me tell you why I write very short form content. As you can see, look at this. Let's look. There's no screenshots. There's lots of bullet points. The word count we're looking at is probably 200, right? It's not long. 3 likes, 1 share. This is why. Let's go back to my LinkedIn now. Let me go to now. When you create a status update, no one gets a notification about it. You just see it in the news feed, right? So I go to my news feed, and you know, this person, Madhu, has shared an article and written her own response, which is great. You know, it's a good thing, and that's got likes and comments. However, something like this will never lead to a notification here. So if we go here now, let me try and find an example of it. You get birthdays, you get work anniversaries, but you also, and I'm going to hopefully try and find one if I can. Right, okay, it doesn't look like I'm finding one, but ultimately the one thing that the LinkedIn notifications is anytime that you post something, right? So when I post something, you'll get a notification, Sergey and Christina, saying Deepak has just published a post that relates to X, right? So now imagine that you connected with an MD, a managing director, you have left them a polite message saying, hey, this is how I can add value, or just wanted to reach out and say something. They get a notification every time you leave an article, every time you write an article. And my titles, how to scale your marketing and hand it off to someone else, content scales, cold calls don't, uncovering fire, etc., etc. The practical principle behind this is I know a managing director isn't probably going, I know a person who has money and who has a growing business is not going to read my long form articles. However, they are going to notice in the notifications that I am creating content. For when the time comes that they need to think of who could be a marketing expert to help me grow my business, they will probably go to that person that keeps appearing in their notifications with what seems to be quite compelling and interesting posts. And the other secondary element to that is all of the people that engage with me on LinkedIn that have actually done business with me, none of them have actually ever read any of my content. The people that connect with me that are implementation people are either other digital marketers or marketing people within an agency or brand of their own who want to try and implement my advice. So that's where the differentiation comes in. And that's what I found to be very effective, if that makes sense, in terms of why I create content regularly, but very short form, because it's designed with my audience in mind. And I want it to be practical, because if I write I can't keep up with writing 2,000 words every 2 or 3 days on LinkedIn, but I can write 200 to 400 word articles on LinkedIn for my intended target market. And that's what I do. That does massively help me with inbound lead generation for people contacting me.
Perfect. So, and as far as the messages, because I know you use messaging to your advantage. And obviously, I think maybe not majority, but a lot of leads you get actually just via the messaging. So how do you actually do that part?
So perfect. So there's let me see. There's a couple of examples. So here's a practical example of someone who's just left me a message on Sunday, and it doesn't refer to the actual webinar, because some people might assume, well, Deepak, you've been on Semrush, that's why people contact you. He says, I've always been a keen reader of your posts and found your insights useful, especially after posting on LinkedIn, which I've started doing. So that's someone who's approached me, which is great. This does happen fairly often, but there is an example of someone who, let me show you. I think his name is Adam. Give me a second. See if it comes up. That's Andy. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to try and find it if I can. Okay, here's another great example. So Basil has just approached me, but Basil is clearly not a person. I'm going to help Basil as we've been talking, but Basil isn't a guy who's an implementation. He's an implementation person rather, because okay, it's not loading for some reason, but hopefully you could say, he says, could you send me over the blog posts? And Basil is asking me for advice how he can better his own business by he wants to know about the articles that I read, which is fantastic. But Basil probably is not going to be a person who has budget to actually therefore grow his business. And this is the guy, Adam Kelby. Okay, for some reason that's not working. Sorry guys, hang on, I'm trying to do it the other way. Here we go. Nothing's working at the moment. Give me one more second. If this fails, then we'll switch. Adam. For me. Okay, so basically, anyway, I'll do it the other way. So this is the message. I'm going to use a shortcut again, Textexpander. There you go. So this is the message that I send, and let's just pretend it's Sergey. Let's pretend it's you, buddy. So I say, hey Sergey, Deepak here. Can we talk? I ask for help. I'm growing my network on LinkedIn with entrepreneurial people. That's a compliment. Sergey, I consider you entrepreneurial. But to be honest, you're thinking I'm going to sell something to you, right? Because that's what everybody thinks. I honestly wanted some advice about your industry and business, specifically how it works for you, so we can improve our offering. So
I guess you come up. You don't want to approach somebody saying, "Hey, I'm this cool guy. I'm trying to sell you something immediately," but rather you're trying to kind of ask for help, yeah. And this way you can actually get a positive response from a person, right? And then after you've made a connection, then you can see, hey, by the way, I can offer you something as well. And this is sort of, I guess, where you can actually convert the person, right?
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, that is exactly how it happens. The other way that happens is that I've had a call with someone, and I after I've approached them on LinkedIn, say, can I have some advice? They're like, yeah, sure, let's speak. We have a call, and I ask, how's it going? And I preface it by saying, this isn't a commercial call. I'm not trying to sell you something. I just want to learn. And then at the end of 15 minutes of them telling me about their business, say, by the way, this is just something that I do day to day that helps my business. Maybe it will help yours. So Process Street is something that I'll tell them about. And then I've had people email me back a week later saying, you know what, Deepak, I've been thinking about my online marketing. Could we have a chat? And that's what typically tends to happen. So yeah, approaching someone with an article that you've written doesn't work. Approaching someone with just a request is a request. Doesn't really tend to go anywhere. Approaching with stuff that either is free or valuable, or a range of things, because I do send them some of my own stuff, but I also send them a lot of other stuff saying, you know what, if this is not of no interest to you, there's also this stuff. If that's of no interest to you, I had 2 cats, let's talk about cats. And people kind of laugh about that, and they're like, cool. So that has been really useful for me, Sergey.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah. So I feel like being honest is the most important thing, right? Like,
it's
so many times.
Yeah.
Great. Well, now we don't have so much time left, and I think it's time to move on to the auditing part.
Yeah.
We've sent you 2 profiles. 2 volunteers sent their profiles over to us. So now you can go through them and maybe give them some tips and recommendations on what they could improve or what's great there. Just
You can be honest.
Yeah, just be honest. That's important.
And so the first one is Matt Leclerc. So Matt, we're going to check out your profile, and after this, we have the profile by Wes Bush. So that's the second one we're going to look at.
Exactly.
And if we have time, you guys can throw out more, and we can audit the third one as well. So with that being said, Deepak, I've sent you the profiles.
Perfect. I will open them up now. So let me share my screen. Okay. Hey Matt, how you doing? So this is your profile. Awesome. Okay. Oh, we're in. You're in my secondary network. Amazing. So I'll send you a connection request. There you go. Now I'm gonna come back to your profile. It's pending. Okay, great. So what I do like, Matt, of course, is that you use line breaks. This is good because it's very easy for me to then delineate what it is that you actually offer. However, to someone that's actually going to buy your services, link building and link outreach for me isn't enough of a distinction, and this is massive premium space that you've got here. So I would say that link outreach and link building, use one but not the other, because then it actually detracts from the two. The second thing is that you appear to be, for example, the jack of all trades. If I want a link builder, why would I also go to an author? Because when I think of an author, I think of, let's just say, either Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek or J.K. Rowling Harry Potter. I don't think of someone who's a link builder. So I would say that choose your area of focus. Now, you might do all of them, great. But, you know, Semrush, for example, do SEO and do social, but you begin by offering one service broadly, and then you can do outreach beyond that. So I'd say stick with one area. That's the first thing. Second thing is that if I look at this photo, the photo's great. It's professional. It's good. You're smiling, which is nice. However, enter. So when I look at actually what's going across the middle of the screen, I'm kind of more looking at your nose and mouth than I am your actual like eyes. And I see that you've gone for the closed lip, but you could have more of a smile here. And then that makes me, you know, that's two things I think that could benefit from changing. So there's some things which I think could help improve it. You've used profile line breaks here, but remember I showed you my profile before. You could use some more profile line breaks, because I feel like I'm about to get into a story with this, and that will probably turn me off from reading it if I'm being really honest. So use profile line breaks here in the same way that you're using there. So there's a couple of examples. Let me just see if there's anything else that is worth me mentioning. Well, there's more we can go on, but in the interest of time, I hope that some of those practical examples are useful, Matt. Let's go to the second example that
the second one is by Wes Bush. So he says, I'd love to get an audit. So let's hear you.
Hello, Wes. Now, Wes approached me because of this Semrush thing. I'm talking to him, I think, in a couple of days. Great. Okay, Wes, same thing, buddy. Let me just give you an example of what I mean when I say same thing. So center of the profile, I'm actually looking more at your shoulders and your neck than I am your face. You're a little bit too far away from the screen for me to really see who you are. Now, I don't have a perfect picture, but I've really just gone smack bang, there's my face. Hey, this is me, I'm smiling, etc. You are smiling, you have a great picture, but just apply zoom to it, because that will be that much better. You're a marketing scientist. What does that mean? I feel like that could be like an Avengers or a DC Comics thing, which is awesome. You know, I'm watching Iron Fist on Netflix at the moment and I'm loving it, even if it's got bad reviews. However, it doesn't really tell me what your value that you're bringing to the table is. Let's go on. Okay, you know what? We've talked about summaries previously. Let's not talk about summaries again. Let's talk about some other bits. So let's have a look at this section. So, you know, we mentioned the line breaks that we talked about in the last profile. Line breaks can apply everywhere, right? Line break, line break. You're asking to make a huge investment on my part to read exactly what everything here does. That's the first thing. The second thing is you're telling me the story. Optimizing a website based on SEO best practices always bugged me for two reasons. Whereas this is not the about us page. This is the what does traffic is currency do as a company. Tell me that immediately. You and I with per traffic, we don't have the privilege of being a super established company like Coca-Cola, meaning that we don't need to tell the other people what we do because everybody knows. Do open with what your business offering actually is. So I'd say begin there. That applies to all of the other things. And then finally, world of marketing is what we mentioned before, Christina and Sergey, to wrap up, is marketing scientist. We got the scientist word, of course, but then you've got intermittent instructor. Does that mean that you turned up when you felt like it, or what does that mean? Then you've got project manager. Project manager, bring out the marketing bits that you did with this, because you're in the marketing field now. Telling me that you're a project manager is too broad. And then finally, demand generation specialist. Is that like a play upon lead generation? What does, like, because there's lots of things in demand, right? So you're making it hard for me to work out what it is that you actually mean. So that is some comments. I hope that was, hold on, let me come back to you guys. I hope that was helpful.
That was good.
Yeah, we actually have one question from the audience.
Yeah.
And
well, we'll have numerous, but we'll have one that we're going to address.
One that we're going to ask because we can't ask all of them. But it's from Jeffrey B. And he's saying, I put some text to my background photo. What do you think about it? Is it too tacky? What's your thought on this?
He put some text as his background photo.
Yeah.
No, text on
the background.
So
photo.
how do you think that takes care from attention? Yeah.
As in the cover image or his actual profile picture?
Yeah.
In the cover, I assume.
In the cover, I guess.
Okay. You know what? I have actually, I have text in my cover image. I need to get rid of it. I don't think they work. Why? Because every tablet and smartphone and iPhone is so different. It's extremely hard. LinkedIn doesn't allow you to do consistent sizes with your images. It's not mobile responsive, unfortunately. So for that reason, I think it's better. One, if you're working as an individual, then pick anything that you want. Two, if you're working within a company, so if you're part of Semrush, of course, if you look at Sergey and Christina's background, they've got clear company colors there. I would look for consistent brand coloring across every LinkedIn profile within your organization so people get a consistent experience. Because the natural thing to do is, if you're going to make a purchasing decision, is I'm thinking about investing in Semrush because I know Sergey. I'm going to look at him on LinkedIn. Then I'm going to look at, naturally, either his company and look at the employees and see their cover images, or I'm going to look at people that viewed Sergey's profile, also looked at Christina, and then I'll have a look at Christina's profile. And if she has a bunch of apples and Sergey has a bunch of trees, then you can't tell the apples from the trees, of course. So you're like, what's going on? So I would say that get rid of the text, plain images, use company images, colors.
Okay, I think that answers as well.
Yeah.
Good advice. By the way, Matt LeClaire wrote, and he said, thanks for the advice. So Deepak, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, and I guess with that being said, we're wrapping it up. And for the people who asked questions who we couldn't ask online, I mean, you guys, we can throw those questions to Deepak, and Deepak can answer them himself. So I'll do that for questions that we couldn't get to that are relevant on LinkedIn. So again, big thanks from myself, Sergey Dari from Semrush.
And from me as well, Christina from Semrush.
And
from me, a pleasure. So Deepak, again, thanks, man, and keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you guys for having me on, and yeah, audience, I hope that was useful to you.
Cheers.
Cool.